In the vast golden chamber of the Galactic Assembly, 1,000 voices buzzed in dozens of alien languages, each species more ancient and proud than the last, seated in curved rows beneath a towering ceiling that shimmered with artificial starlight. This was where the fate of civilizations was decided, where conquests were not waged by war, but by politics. And today, the attention of the entire assembly was fixed on a small blue planet spinning quietly on the edge of the Orion Arm, Earth. A tall, elegant being with crystal skin and glowing blue eyes, known as Chairmistress Vele of the Kirintari, raised a six-fingered hand to signal silence, her voice soft but amplified by thought link to every mind in the room. We proceed now to the vote on Resolution 1492, the stewardship and integration of the human planet, Earth. A murmur passed through the crowd. The word stewardship was dressed in kindness, but all present knew it for what it was. Enslavement, with pretty words. Earth had grown fast, too fast, and worse, without permission. In a mere few centuries, humans had leaped from stone tools to space probes, building AI, quantum networks, and defense grids with no galactic aid. They had not asked for help. They had not waited for guidance. And now they were beginning to explore beyond their own system. The Assembly could not allow it. Earth was too unpredictable, too emotional, too independent. Chairmistress Vele looked over the sea of delegates, her tone smooth as glass. We remind the Assembly that Earth has denied multiple requests to delay their technological development. They have failed to submit genetic logs, declined social oversight, and disregarded the Harmony Charter. Their civilization advances on a chaotic curve, unmonitored, unsupervised, and unstable. Several delegates nodded, their holographic robes pulsing in agreement. A few whispered concerns about Earth's rumored quantum weapon prototypes and AI language viruses, unverified but troubling. The delegates cast their votes by thought link, little pulses of light firing from their seats to the chamber's central node. The votes tallied in seconds. Resolution 1492, Vele announced, her lips parting in a thin, satisfied line, has passed. Earth is to be brought under immediate protective stewardship. Communications will be sent, diplomatic fleets dispatched, and all cultural and scientific assets placed under Assembly control. The chamber echoed with nods of approval, yet a few voices hesitated. From the shadowy side of the chamber, a small, red-eyed ambassador from the Circi Confederation whispered to his aide, "You ever get the feeling we're making a mistake?" But the vote was done. The chamber lights dimmed, and ships launched from secret hangars, sleek silver and carrying the quiet arrogance of a 1,000-year-old empire. Meanwhile, back on Earth, it was night in New York City. Bright neon signs blinked above the quiet streets. The stars were hidden behind clouds. People rushed to their homes, tired from long days of work, completely unaware that their world had just been claimed by a force that spanned galaxies. In a secure underground lab beneath Geneva, a young woman named Amara Klein sipped cold coffee as she stared at a live data feed from one of the deep space telescopes. A strange pattern had been repeating for days, shifts in gravitational waves, too even to be natural, too far out to be a satellite. She frowned, tightened her ponytail, and ran the analysis again. The AI flagged it. Foreign object, non-human, approaching outer solar system. Her stomach tightened. She tapped her comlink. "Control, this is Klein. I think we've got company." But Earth's leaders wouldn't know for sure until the ships arrived, silent and gleaming, entering orbit with no warning, no weapons drawn, and no visible threat. Just the cold presence of authority. They sent a message, calm and direct, in perfect English, translated in 1,000 dialects and broadcast over every signal. "Citizens of Earth, do not be alarmed. Your planet has been brought under the protection of the Galactic Assembly. Your leadership will be invited to participate in supervised cultural integration. Your technology will be carefully preserved. Your autonomy will be managed for your safety. We come in peace." Across the planet, silence fell. For a few moments, no one believed it was real. Then panic, confusion, outrage. World governments scrambled for answers. Scientists were pulled from labs. Military satellites were redirected. In Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London, the same question echoed. Who gave them the right? Behind closed doors, Earth's leaders held emergency summits. Some feared open war, others feared surrender. But it was Amara Klein who stood before the United Nations General Assembly 2 days later, her voice calm, unwavering, carried live across every channel, translated into every language. "We are not children. We are not dangerous. We are not inferior. We are human, and we do not consent." The chamber erupted with thunderous applause. For the first time in decades, Earth was united, not by fear of each other, but by the presence of something larger. That night, a digital virus spread across the alien fleet's surveillance systems. Earth's hackers were already at work. In hidden labs, engineers worked around the clock, decoding the ship's energy fields, studying their drive systems, analyzing their weaknesses. And in the orbit above, the alien ships hovered, patient and unmoved, certain of the outcome. But deep within the Assembly's records, a few ancient entries spoke of other civilizations who had tried to resist and vanished. The assumption was always the same. Resistance was futile, but Earth had never been told it could not win. It had never accepted limits. And as the night passed into dawn, as the world braced for what came next, one thing became clear to the Assembly watchers monitoring the planet. Earth was not afraid. Something strange was happening, something unpredictable, and for the first time in a very long time, the Galactic Assembly felt a sliver of doubt. The sun rose over Earth, but the world felt colder than usual, as if the weight of something unseen pressed down on the air itself, a silent signal that everything had changed. And in capital cities across the globe, the tension was so thick it clung to every breath. Above in orbit, the alien ships remained perfectly still, silent watchers hanging like silver daggers against the sky, not firing, not speaking, just waiting, as if the planet below was already theirs, and inside those ships, the envoys of the Galactic Assembly waited with confidence, learned from centuries of conquest. No species had ever refused them for long. But Earth, they would soon learn, was different. In New York City, the United Nations building was surrounded by military vehicles. News drones hovered like insects above rooftops, and the streets were eerily quiet, the people unsure whether to fear invasion or hope for peace. But inside the main assembly hall, voices clashed, rising and falling in heated debate, as leaders from nearly every nation struggled to agree on a response to the sudden claim of control. The alien message had been cold but polite, offering integration, not destruction, yet something about the way it was delivered, without permission, without warning, sparked a deep instinct in the hearts of people. Everywhere, a feeling that their freedom was under threat, and that instinct spread like fire. Amara Klein stood once again before the world, no longer just a scientist, but now a voice that millions had begun to trust. And as she walked to the podium, wearing a simple black suit and no makeup, her face serious and calm, the room fell silent. She looked at the rows of diplomats, generals and observers, then into the cameras that carried her image across the planet, and spoke with clear, steady words. "We have heard the message from the Galactic Assembly. We understand their claim, but we do not accept it." A wave of whispers followed, some shocked, some hopeful, and she continued, "Earth belongs to no one but humanity. We will not hand over our governments. We will not surrender our minds, our cultures, or our spirit. We may not have the power they do, but we have something else. Will." Outside the building, The crowd watching on giant screens erupted into cheers, and across the planet, similar scenes unfolded as cities paused to hear Earth's answer to the stars. The speech was followed by action. The world's space agencies, tech companies, and militaries began working together for the first time in history, sharing data through encrypted networks, designing countermeasures, and analyzing the alien presence above. Earth's brightest minds worked day and night, deciphering patterns in the alien communications, mapping energy fields from the ships, and building digital tools to disrupt surveillance. In underground bunkers, engineers constructed new types of shielding based on theories never tested before, mixing human creativity with stolen alien algorithms intercepted from the ship's passive scans. And in the shadows of cyberspace, elite hackers, some barely out of school, slipped into the edges of the alien networks, probing, learning, and quietly planting code that would later turn into something much greater. The Galactic Assembly, monitoring Earth's response from above, was puzzled. Normally, species responded with fear or confusion. Earth responded with coordination, speed, and silence. The leaders on the main ship, the Celestial Verdict, met to discuss. Ambassador Ralzek of the Dirali, long-faced and covered in golden scales, frowned as he examined the latest data from Earth's satellites. They are not panicking, they are preparing. Chairmistress Vele appeared on a projection node, her crystal body pulsing with light. Let them prepare. They cannot resist when we apply pressure. Their systems are fragile, their defenses outdated. We will begin the containment phase. The assembly ships, still in orbit, activated a field known as the Compliance Halo, a technology that interfered with planetary communication satellites, sending random interference signals and causing confusion in Earth's internet and satellite feeds. It was not an attack, but a message: obey or be cut off. But within hours, Earth adapted. Engineers rerouted data through ground-based fiber networks. Emergency systems switched to analog, and a series of small, unregistered satellites launched from independent stations carried Earth's messages on tight beams the assembly didn't expect. The interruption lasted less than a day. When the assembly sent a second message, more stern than the first, Earth sent no reply. Instead, Amara Klein appeared on Earth's emergency broadcast system once more. Her voice was tired, but strong. We do not challenge the stars for power. We challenge them for our right to exist on our own terms. If they expect surrender, they will wait forever. That night, something strange happened above the Indian Ocean. One of the alien observation drones, hovering low to gather atmospheric data, lost contact with the fleet. It didn't explode. It simply vanished. When a second drone met the same fate, the assembly fleet grew uneasy. They didn't know that a team of young engineers working out of an old military base had created a directional EMP based on wave disruptions they observed in the aliens' scanning patterns. It wasn't powerful enough to damage the ships, but it could blind them temporarily. Earth was learning, fast. In a hidden lab beneath Tokyo, scientists decrypted part of the alien ship's propulsion code from passive signal leaks. In Johannesburg, a group of students used weather balloons to map the gaps in the alien fleet's orbit. In Brazil, a retired radio technician managed to hijack one of the assembly's drone communication signals long enough to transmit Earth music into the alien data stream, Beethoven's Ninth. The aliens did not understand the message, but they understood the defiance. Inside the Galactic Assembly, reports poured in. Earth's resistance was not collapsing, it was growing stronger. Vidley called an emergency session, her calm voice now tight with frustration. Humanity is not obeying the pattern. They are not yielding. They are learning, evolving. Every hour they resist, they grow more dangerous. Some of the older races laughed off her concern, but others listened more carefully. The Threxan commander, Vaxor, spoke for the first time in days. They are not following protocol. Perhaps they never will. Back on Earth, night fell again, but the world no longer feared the stars. Lights remained on in labs, in command centers, in tiny garages where inventors worked beside old radios and recycled drones. Earth's people were not chosen for this fight, but they had chosen themselves. The Galactic Assembly had voted to enslave Earth, but Earth had voted too, in silence, in code, in science, in song. And their answer was simple: no. Above Earth, the alien ships began to shift, their silent presence growing darker as their lights dimmed and their engines pulsed low and slow, like a deep breath before something dangerous. And inside the command vessel Celestial Verdict, Chair Mistress Velay stood before the great display of Earth's surface, her crystal skin flickering with shades of impatience as she watched the blue planet continue to ignore their authority. And behind her, the captains of several species whispered in their native tongues, some questioning why a species as young as humanity had not yet crumbled under pressure, and others warning that patience had limits. The decision was made without more discussion. Containment would escalate, not into war, but into something quiet and sharp, the kind of pressure that breaks will without fire. The Galactic Assembly sent a new order down to its fleet. Surround Earth's orbit completely, form a complete blockade, and choke Earth's access to its satellites, asteroid mining stations, and Mars research base without direct confrontation. The idea was simple: cut Earth off from space, from data, from supplies, and from hope. The ships moved slowly, forming a sphere around the planet, their orbits aligned with mathematical perfection, cloaking satellites activated to project fields of interference that scrambled signals and darkened skies, while drones buzzed silently along Earth's upper atmosphere, scanning, watching, and waiting. On Earth, the first sign of something wrong came from mission control stations, where operators lost contact with lunar probes and deep space telescopes. Then Starlink networks began to fail, and artificial intelligence assistance systems stuttered. With missing information, confusion spread quickly and fear followed. In an underground base in Iceland, Amara Klein read the latest transmission logs and saw the pattern. Every signal, every piece of data was being intercepted or blocked from beyond orbit, and the realization hit her like cold iron. The aliens weren't just watching, they were trying to suffocate Earth's reach. She gathered her team, scientists and coders from 10 different countries, and within hours they were running simulations to predict the structure of the blockade. The aliens had underestimated something critical: Earth's adaptability, and within 2 days a plan formed. Across Earth, stealth drones launched from hidden launch pads and secret ocean platforms disguised as weather probes and research devices, but built for a single purpose: get close to the alien ships without being seen. The drones used shape-shifting panels, solar cloaking, and random pathing algorithms written by hackers who had grown up dodging surveillance systems. And though many were destroyed, some made it through the blind spots in the blockade and began feeding live data back to Earth's command network. The aliens detected something was wrong when a wave of false signals began to appear in their outer sensors. Phantom energy readings, thermal ghosts, and light distortions that made it seem like ships were approaching when none were there. These were not mistakes. Earth had developed a system of optical warfare, a method of using mirrors, radiation pulses, and hacked satellite lenses to create illusions that fooled the most advanced alien tech. The assembly commanders were stunned. This level of deception should not have been possible from a civilization barely out of its first space station. Yet here it was, and it was working. One alien ship fired a warning pulse at what it believed to be a rising Earth fighter craft, only to realize it had shot at a holographic echo bouncing off a decommissioned satellite. Within hours, confusion rippled through the blockade fleet. Some ships began repositioning unnecessarily, opening gaps. Earth's military saw these gaps and began small-scale operations, sneaking communication bursts through the open windows and reactivating satellite links in the shadows of the confusion. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic Ocean, a secret Earth submarine surfaced beneath cloud cover and launched a high-altitude balloon, carrying a narrowband transmitter, shielded and powered by tech reverse-engineered from the first alien scout drone they had captured and dismantled weeks before. The balloon transmitted a single message, burst-coded in binary, aimed straight at the heart of the assembly fleet. "We are not a colony. We are not your subjects. We are the storm you failed to predict." The message hit their command network like a pulse of cold fire, not because of the words, but because it came through a frequency shielded by assembly encryption, which should have been impossible. Chairmistress Vele stared at the decoded message with a still face, but behind her calm, fear flickered for the first time. On the third day of the blockade, something even stranger happened. One of the alien ships, a patrol vessel, drifting over the Pacific, lost all internal guidance, began to spin slowly, then vanished from formation entirely. The assembly called it a systems error, but deep inside Earth's Arctic Lab 7, a young systems engineer named Elias Varin was screaming with joy. His algorithm, designed to mimic alien control signals using fractured logic and waveform echoes, had fooled the patrol ship's AI just long enough to trigger a remote reboot, effectively hijacking the ship's navigation from thousands of kilometers away. The ship wasn't destroyed, but it had been blinded. It now floated in space, helpless, silent, and broadcasting nothing. Earth didn't strike with missiles or lasers. They struck with signal, speed, and imagination. On the sixth day, a final pressure wave was released by the assembly, this time aimed at Earth's lower atmosphere. A gentle energy field, meant to disrupt magnetism and power grids, drifted across the skies like a silent fog. And for a few hours, parts of Earth went dark. Cities flickered, lights died, comms cut out. But the aliens had not expected Earth's resilience. Backup generators roared to life, old shortwave radios reappeared, amateur inventors set up neighborhood grids, and printed flyers returned as a form of communication. The assembly watched, confused. They had expected panic. Instead, they found persistence. In every part of the world, humans adapted. They worked together. They built workarounds. They helped each other. And slowly, something new began to form. Not just resistance, but strategy. Humanity realized the assembly was testing them, trying to push them into submission without a single battle. But instead of breaking, Earth became harder, smarter, and faster. The aliens realized too late that their slow, calculated retaliation had given humans time to evolve. Earth had turned the invasion into a classroom, and they were learning faster than anyone thought possible. On the seventh day, a strange new signal reached the assembly fleet, a recording of Earth's leaders, no longer asking for peace or demanding freedom, but calmly stating a declaration. Amara Klein's voice carried the message. To the Galactic Assembly, we acknowledge your power. We understand your history, but we do not accept your claim. Earth is not isolated. We are aware now. We are awake, and we are reaching for the stars, not as your property, but as your equal. You may block our sky, you may break our machines, but you cannot block our minds, and minds once free cannot be chained again. As the message played, Earth launched something new, Project Horizon, a small, sleek object rising from a hidden base in the Andes. Not a weapon, not a drone, but a probe powered by a hybrid Earth-alien drive built from salvaged parts and human imagination. It jumped through orbit in a blink, vanishing into deep space, breaking the blockade from within. The assembly had tried to stop Earth from rising. Instead, they had given it the push it needed to leap forward. And as the alien ships watched that tiny signal disappear into the stars, something else rose behind it. Not a fleet, not a bomb, but an idea. Earth was no longer afraid. Earth was reaching beyond them. And somewhere inside the assembly's silent command chamber, someone finally whispered what no one wanted to say aloud. We may have awakened something we cannot control. Far beyond Earth, in the cold dark of space, the small human-made probe called Horizon 1 sped through the void, powered by a strange fusion of salvaged alien tech and raw human creativity. A machine no larger than a car, but carrying something far more dangerous than weapons, proof that Earth could now move beyond its cage. And inside the command chamber of the Galactic Assembly flagship Celestial Verdict, silence had fallen as the trajectory data confirmed what they feared. Earth had just reached faster-than-light propulsion, or something close to it, with no assistance, no permission, and no template, and this shattered everything the Assembly believed about primitive species. Amara Klein stood in the hidden mountain command center beneath the Andes, her hands gripping the edge of a control panel, watching the signals stream from the probe as it pinged back coordinates and images from deep space in real time. Images that even the Assembly's best sensors couldn't block, and she knew this was the moment everything changed, not with explosions or death, but with the shift of balance, the moment humanity no longer stood on the edge of extinction, but at the beginning of something far greater. Across the world, people were still living in blackout zones, cities struggling to fully recover from the magnetic pulse the aliens had sent down, and yet, from those dark places came music, lanterns, coded whispers, and defiant laughter as humans adapted faster than even their own leaders expected, solving problems with grit and stubborn fire. And as news spread about the Horizon 1 breaking the blockade, a new mood swept across the planet. Not just survival, but belief. The Galactic Assembly was confused more now than ever, and in secret meetings aboard the Celestial Verdict, factions began to argue. Some species wanted to escalate, to deploy real force and burn a warning into Earth's crust, while others whispered that this species might be valuable, unpredictable, but powerful, and still others warned that they had already made a mistake by pushing Earth too far. Chairmistress Veli stood alone, staring at a still image of Earth, her crystal body dimmer now, her internal light flickering in strange patterns, as if uncertainty had infected even her perfect design. And she ordered something that shocked even her generals: retreat. Formation Phase 1. Not full withdrawal, but the slow pullback of half the observation fleet under the excuse of repositioning. But it was not strategy. It was fear. On Earth, Amara and her team immediately noticed the shift in ship placement, and while military leaders argued whether it was a trap or a test, Amara simply watched the pattern and said, "They're nervous." It was a whisper, but it hit like thunder in the quiet command room. At that same hour, across the oceans, a group of scientists in a forgotten Antarctic base detected something strange. A low-frequency signal echoing through the planet's magnetic field, a signal they hadn't placed, one coming not from Earth, and not from the alien fleet, but from something beneath the ocean floor, and they traced it to a place near the Mariana Trench. What they found there changed everything again. A massive object, buried under miles of rock and water, shaped like no human structure, but also unlike anything in the Assembly's current technology, was pulsing with energy as if waking up. Earth's governments rushed to investigate, and the alien observers grew suddenly silent, watching the new event unfold with the same fear they once directed at Earth itself. The object, once scanned, revealed something impossible. It wasn't alien in the normal sense. It was old, far older than the assembly, predating even their records, and somehow it was responding to the activation of Horizon 1 as if awakened by a human signal that echoed across dimensions. Amara and her core team were flown to the deep sea, station constructed around the anomaly, and what they saw made every theory collapse. Inside the core of the structure was a vault of energy and data, a living machine intelligence that spoke not in words, but in images and pulses, showing visions of stars dying, galaxies folding, and ancient wars fought by beings no longer known. And then it showed Earth, not as it was, but as it could be, a spark of something greater, something once seeded long ago, something that had been waiting to awaken. The machine had not been placed by the assembly, it had been there before them, watching, waiting. The truth came like lightning through Amara's mind. Humanity had not evolved by accident. Something ancient had guided their chaos, shaped their resistance, and now, with the pressure of the assembly forcing evolution, the lock had finally broken. Earth was becoming what it was meant to be. The assembly tried to interfere, sending warning shots, sending signals demanding humans shut down the site, even trying to crash drones into the trench. But Earth's new hybrid tech intercepted and blocked every move. Worse, Horizon 1 was still out there, now returning with data that showed something even more terrifying for the aliens. A trail of beacons left by the ancient race, many of them buried near other assembly-controlled worlds. Earth had found a map, and the implications sent panic through the assembly leadership. If Earth activated more of these sites, they wouldn't just gain power. They might unravel the entire order of the galaxy. Vele convened a crisis meeting with the full Assembly Council. Voices raised in fear and anger, some calling for full war, others warning that war might now mean loss. And one voice, small and ancient, suggested something not said in centuries: negotiation. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Amara stood before a live global feed once more, looking tired but focused, her eyes sharp with purpose, and she addressed the world with a calm, clear voice. We are no longer alone, not because they found us, but because we found ourselves. The assembly wanted us small, but they woke us up, and now we are rising. At that same moment, power returned fully across the globe, not from old grids, but from new ones, activated by technology reverse-engineered from the trench machine, and in cities everywhere, lights came on in patterns that spelled hope. Ships rose from Earth's launch bays, not warships, but explorers, carrying the new map into the stars, protected by shields no one else understood, driven by engines no one else had. Earth had not just resisted invasion. Earth had become a contender, and far above, in the orbiting ships of the Galactic Assembly, the silence turned to dread, because the turning point had arrived, and it had not turned in their favor. The silence in the Galactic Assembly chambers stretched thin as the latest reports came in. Earth had not stopped expanding its influence. It had only just begun. And now, dozens of beacons across nearby systems had activated in response to the ancient deep-sea structure Earth had awakened, spreading low-frequency pulses that reached across the void like invisible fire. Signals. The Assembly could not decode but feared deeply, and Chairmistress Vele stood frozen as the Council erupted in panic. Because those beacons were buried in Assembly territory, hidden beneath moons and planets they believed were safe. And now, those worlds were rising in ways they could not control. On Earth, Amara Klein watched the star map slowly come to life in the sky dome of the Andes facility, each beacon blinking a steady rhythm like a heartbeat from the past. And one by one, humanity's new generation of ships launched, not with missiles, but with explorers, scientists, and engineers, their minds focused not on revenge, but on awakening and understanding the deeper truth behind what they had found. But not everyone in the galaxy felt the same. In a forgotten sector, the Zixari, one of the oldest and most aggressive Assembly member species, saw Earth's rise as a challenge to their long-standing dominance, and without waiting for approval, they launched a surprise assault on Earth's outer satellites, destroying 3 of the newly built research platforms near the Moon and declaring open hostility, their message sent not to Earth, but to the Assembly. If you will not crush them, we will. This act shattered the uneasy balance within the Assembly and sent waves of anger and fear through both sides. But Earth did not fall back. Instead, they struck with precision, not by firing weapons, but by activating one of the newly unlocked deep space platforms, once hidden beneath Mars's surface, which released an energy pulse that froze the Zixari fleet in mid-flight, locking their systems, overriding their controls, and turning their warships into drifting ghosts in orbit. For the first time in the Assembly's history, a founding species had been stopped cold by a new one, and that made others wonder if they too had misjudged Earth. On a small Assembly-controlled world called Telvan, where humans had once been, enslaved as miners under harsh gravity conditions, the news of Earth's victory over the Zixari reached the underground camps, and something ancient stirred in the hearts of those beaten and forgotten: hope. The humans there had long believed Earth had abandoned them, but now they knew Earth was rising, and that changed everything. Riots broke out in the lower shafts, tools became weapons, and for the first time in decades, human workers turned against their alien masters, shouting the same words that had echoed from Amara's speech. "We are no longer alone." The uprising spread like fire, not just on Telvan, but on other colonies where humans had been used as workers or test subjects, on worlds like Geron Prime, Ixia 3, and the moons of Yarvek, each one bursting into rebellion as the signals from Earth reached them, guiding their communications, jamming their overseers' transmissions, and giving them a path to freedom. Amara watched from Earth as reports of the uprisings arrived, not from military sources, but from liberated voices, and though she feared the price, she knew there was no stopping it now. The galaxy had underestimated Earth's will, but worse, they had scattered Earth's children across the stars, and now those children were rising together. The Assembly tried to stop it, deploying peacekeeper fleets, issuing emergency lockdowns, and sending warnings to Earth to call off the rebellions. But Earth sent back a single message: "We do not control them. You do not understand us. We only lit the fire. They chose to rise." In the shadows, factions within the Assembly began to fracture. Some species began reaching out secretly to Earth, offering alliance, trade, even knowledge of their own about the ancient beacons, while others pulled back their forces from human-occupied colonies in fear of open revolt. Chairmistress Vele stood on the edge of collapse, her voice no longer calm as she demanded order from a council that no longer listened to her, and the realization came to her slowly. They had lost control not just of Earth, but of the narrative, of the belief that only the Assembly could lead. On Telvan, the human miners overran the control towers and broadcast their own signal to the galaxy, showing themselves raising the blue and white symbol of the Earth Alliance, a banner that had not been seen in space for decades, now shining bright as a symbol of defiance and freedom. The image spread like wildfire across planetary networks, hijacked Assembly satellites, and even into Assembly homeworlds, where citizens began questioning everything they'd been taught about Earth. The Zixari, furious at their humiliation, launched a second fleet toward Earth, larger, better shielded, and without Assembly permission, vowing to finish what they had started. But this time, Earth was ready. In orbit, Earth's hybrid defense array activated fully for the first time. Cloaked drones, artificial gravity slings, and beam distorters, creating a maze of deadly traps that turned the battle into chaos. But even as ships clashed above, something far more powerful happened below. Earth, through the deep-sea ancient AI, now called sentience, sent a pulse not of destruction, but of truth, a message layered in 100 languages, showing the hidden history of the assembly, the way they had silenced emerging civilizations for eons, rewritten their records, and enslaved countless species to maintain control. The message was not just sent to the assembly, it was broadcast to every colony, every mining world, every spaceport. It was the truth, raw and undeniable. Uprisings turned into revolutions. Non-human species that had suffered under assembly control began to rebel too, some joining forces with humans, others starting their own struggles. The galaxy burned, not in war but in revelation. In one final act of desperation, Chairmistress Vele attempted to activate the final edict, a hidden protocol meant to erase Earth from space with a focused energy collapse using a black sun, a ray stationed near the edge of known systems. But as she gave the command, the system failed to respond. A voice, calm, female, human, spoke through the assembly's own systems. "We disabled your weapon 3 days ago. We are not your enemies, but we will not kneel." The uprising had become more than Earth's fight. It had become a movement, a reckoning, and even as Earth's skies held firm and human voices echoed through liberated systems, it became clear that the old order was falling. Amara stood beneath the stars, now visible again without interference, and she whispered to herself, "They tried to bury us, but we were seeds." Around her, the stars pulsed with 1,000 new voices, free, wild, and rising. The galaxy had changed, and the change could not be undone. On thousands of screens across space, people saw the truth broadcast by Earth's strange signal, the secrets hidden by the Galactic Assembly, the lies buried under centuries of control, and across mining colonies, research stations, orbital habitats, and alien homeworlds, the people began to rise, not just humans, but other species who had long been crushed under the weight of silence and fear. And now, for the first time in generations, they had a name to rally behind: Earth. On the Assembly's capital world Veltrax, once proud and shining with towers of silver, angry mobs filled the streets, tearing down banners, burning records, and painting Earth's symbol across walls, while Assembly guards, overwhelmed and confused, held their weapons but did not fire, because some of them too had heard the message and no longer believed in what they were protecting. In the skies above Earth, the final Zixari fleet, once feared and unmatched, floated in pieces, their wreckage spinning in orbit as Earth's gravity began to drag the ruins downward, leaving trails of light in the sky like falling stars. And below, the people watched in silence, not cheering but standing still, their faces full of quiet strength, for they knew the war was never truly about ships and weapons. It was about being seen, about being heard, about never again letting others decide their worth. In the secret council chambers of the assembly, Chairmistress Vele stood alone, the room dark around her, the council seats empty, abandoned by those who had fled, betrayed her, or turned to Earth's side. And in her hand she held the last command key, the final override to a weapon buried beneath the assembly core, an ancient tool designed to wipe out a planet's atmosphere in one swift strike. But she could not press it, because even she now knew that Earth had already won, not by power but by truth. Across the stars, human ships no longer flew alone. They were joined by vessels of other species who had been freed in the uprisings, flying together, guarding new borders not for conquest, but for peace. And at the edge of the Sol system, a great meeting began to form, a gathering like none ever seen before. Delegates came not in grand processions, but in humble ships, many marked with damage, some barely functioning, carrying leaders who had once bowed to the assembly, but who now sought something different. Amara Klein stood aboard Earth's flagship, Unity, wearing a plain uniform with no medals, her voice steady as she addressed the gathering across linked comm channels. "We are not here to rule, We are not here to replace the assembly with another throne. We are here to build something better together." Her words echoed across systems, and in that moment, something ancient shifted again, deep within the Earth's oceans, where sentience, the alien machine intelligence, pulsed with approval, sharing one last vision. A future where species stood side by side, not as masters and slaves, but as equals, and that future began with forgiveness and rebuilding. But one step remained. Earth could not lead until the old rulers accepted their defeat, and so a transmission was sent to the last assembly fleet hiding near the Orion Veil, a message with no threats, just coordinates and 4 words. "Come, face the truth." And to the galaxy's shock they came, not with weapons raised, but with empty hands, the remaining leaders of the assembly arriving in one last council ship, its engines dim, its shields off. And when it landed in the valley, outside New Santiago, where the Mountain Command had once operated, the people of Earth gathered in silence. Amara stood at the front, waiting, and behind her stood not soldiers, but civilians, scientists, artists, former slaves and children from colonies newly freed. The assembly leaders stepped forward slowly, uncertain, their fine robes torn, their faces drawn and pale, and then, before the entire world, they knelt, not in chains, not by force. They knelt because they finally understood. They had tried to break Earth, but instead, Earth had woken something in all of them that had been asleep too long. The kneeling was not a surrender to power. It was recognition of what they had tried to destroy and failed. Cameras floated in the air, recording everything, and across 1,000 worlds, people watched with wide eyes as the most feared rulers in the galaxy dropped to their knees before a planet they once voted to enslave. Amara did not smile, did not speak for a long time, but then she raised her hand and said one sentence: "We rise together, or not at all." That day became known across the stars as the Day of Kneeling, not as Earth's victory alone, but as the first moment of true unity in galactic history. From the ruins of war came something rare, peace born not from surrender, but from understanding. The old assembly was disbanded, its tools of control dismantled, its fleets repurposed for rebuilding efforts, and in its place rose the Concord. Of free worlds, where no species held dominance, where every voice was heard, and Earth, once feared, now served as its heart, not to lead, but to guide. Amara stepped down soon after, refusing the title of president or empress, choosing instead to return to research and education, and in the years that followed, her story became legend. But she always said the same thing: "I didn't change. History, we all did." And far beyond, in deep space, the beacons still pulsed, their purpose not yet fully known, their secrets still unfolding, but no longer feared, for now the galaxy faced them as one. In schools on distant moons, children of different species studied human history, not just the wars, but the stubborn will to rise after every fall, and the way Earth had turned pain into progress, fire into fuel, and rage into resolve. The scars remained, but they were no longer signs of defeat, they were signs of survival. The stars had once looked down on Earth with cold judgment. Now they watched with quiet respect. And as new ships launched toward unexplored systems, carrying names like Hope, Unity, and Freeborn, their trails marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for humans, but for every voice that had once been silenced. Earth had been chosen for chains. Instead, it became the spark that set a galaxy free.